Welcome back to Empower Her, the Help We Need podcast, the space where we have honest conversations to help professional women thrive and not just survive in their careers, leadership, and personal growth journeys. I'm your host, Funmike Moronkeji, your HR advisor and personal transformation coach. Some seasons of life come with clear direction. You know what you're working towards, you understand what is expected of you. You can see the next opportunity, the next decision, or the next step. But other seasons of life are not so clear. The organization is changing. The role you were working towards is suddenly uncertain. A decision you expected has been delayed. You are now navigating a career transition, maybe a relocation, a restructuring in the organization, a leadership change, or personal responsibility that you did not anticipate. Yet, you're still showing up. You're still doing your work. But privately, you may be wondering, what happens next? Am I still moving in the right direction? Should I wait, push forward, or change course? How do I lead when I do not have all the answers? Uncertainty can feel like this, and it can be deeply, deeply uncomfortable, especially for capable, responsible, high-achieving women who are accustomed to planning, solving problems, and making things happen. And I'm sure that you will agree with me that we often feel safest as women, or everyone in general, but especially as women, when we can anticipate the outcome, right? But leadership does not only happen when your path is clear, when you know the outcome, when you have an idea of what the next step is. Sometimes your most important leadership development happens when the path is still unfolding, evolving. And throughout my career, I've led through changing markets, organizational transformations, regional responsibilities where most things were sort of up in the air. Career transitions, changes in roles, positions, and even relocation, and especially working in unfamiliar environments. I've also experienced seasons when my next step was not immediately obvious. And I've learned that uncertainty does not always mean something has gone wrong. Sometimes uncertainty means that something is changing, something is ending, something is being reconsidered, or something new is beginning before you fully understand what it will require from you. In our previous episode, Stop Waiting to Feel Ready, we explored why confidence is often built through action, right? Rather than you have to be confident before you take action. But what happens when you take action and the answers you're getting still do not come immediately, right? Or the answers rather that you're envisaging don't come immediately. What happens when you're willing to move forward, but the situation around you remains unclear? That is the conversation we're having today, leading through seasons of uncertainty. And we're going to learn more on how to stay grounded when the path ahead of us is not clear. This episode is for you if you're navigating change at work, if you're waiting for an important decision, questioning your next career move, leading a team through instability, rebuilding after disappointment, or simply finding yourself in a season that no longer feels predictable. You may not be able to control the season, but you can decide how you will move through it. This conversation also connects with the Leadership Reset for Immigrant Professional Women, my newsletter where I share practical reflections and strategies on confidence, visibility, leadership growth, mental fitness, and navigating career transitions with intention. You can subscribe through the link in the episode description because even when the entire part is not visible, you can still lead your next step well. So, welcome today. And our focus for today would be talking about leadership that does not require complete certainty. And like many of us know, we are consciously, I think we believe that effective leadership means that we have all the answers. We know what to say. We understand what next steps would look like. Because in a sense, we interpret that to mean that it gives us more confidence and people can trust us and it feels like we're more credible. And we assume on that premise that a strong leader should know what will happen, what decisions to make, how everything is going to turn out, and how to protect everyone in their team from disruption. But guess what? Leadership is not the ability to predict every outcome. Leadership, on the other hand, is the ability for you to remain thoughtful, responsible, and grounded, even when the outcome is still evolving, still developing, when you're not sure, when you're not clear. And let me say here that there is an important difference between certainty and clarity, right? Certainty tells you, I know exactly what will happen. Clarity tells you, I understand in this moment what matters, what I know today or now, and especially what I need to do next. You may not have certainty about the final outcome of your situation, but you can have clarity about your values. You can have clarity about your responsibilities. You can have clarity about what is within your influence, your control. And you can have clarity about the next meaningful action. And that is often enough to help you move forward. You do not need to understand the entire season to lead yourself well within it. So, why does uncertainty feel so uncomfortable? Well, uncertainty is not only about a lack of information, mind you. It can also affect our sense of identity, our sense of control, our sense of safety, and our sense of progress. When you're accustomed to being competent, uncertainty can feel particularly unsettling, right? You may be someone others turn to for answers. You may be someone others turn to help solve problems. You may have built your career by being dependable, being prepared, and being several steps ahead of others. Then suddenly you find yourself in a situation that you cannot immediately solve for, right? It's uncertain. You don't know what to do. And it could mean that you're waiting for leadership to make a decision, maybe about your promotion, maybe about your role in the organization. You may be applying for positions without knowing when the right opportunity will come, right? You keep applying, you keep being turned down, and you may be performing well within your organization, especially when there's a restructuring and it's unnerving, right? And it could be that you may be adapting to a new country. You just moved to a new location. Your workplace culture is evolving. The industry is different, or the leadership environment is not what you're used to. And you may be questioning whether the plan that you carefully created still fits the bubble, the situation, the life that you are living in now. And in this moment, I'll be honest, it's easy to think, as women especially, that if I were more capable, I would know what to do, right? But uncertainty is not evidence that you are incapable. Uncertainty is evidence that you do not yet have all the information, and they are not the same thing, because capable people still experience uncertainty. Experienced leaders still have questions. Confident professionals in the workspace still encounter situations they cannot control. The challenge begins really when we interpret uncertainty as a personal failure. So, right, there's a situation where you feel like I do not know it yet. And what do we do with that? We turn that situation of I don't know it yet into, oh my God, I'm falling behind, right? Or maybe a decision has been delayed. And most times, what do we do with that? Oh, this decision has been delayed. And then suddenly you start interpreting it as they don't value me. Or it could be an opportunity didn't work out for you. And then what you turn that into is, oh, it didn't work out for me. So maybe I'm not good enough. But uncertainty is a condition, right? It's a condition. It's not a conclusion. It's a condition that happens to you, but it's not concluding that that's the end of it and be all and your life is over because of the situation. So please, women, don't allow a temporary lack of information, because that's what uncertainty is, to become a permanent judgment about your ability, your value, or your future. So let's separate what's happening from the story you're telling yourself based on what I just shared now. And like I said, when circumstances are unclear, your mind will naturally try to close the information gap, right? You don't have the information, so you try and feed that in, because by nature of us as human beings, we want to solve the problem. We want to have an update of, okay, maybe this is why. And it's just that insatiable need to provide a reason for why things are happening. It must be because of this. So in a sense, it creates a form of, I need to explain, and your brain starts telling you, you need to explain why this is happening. And then you form your own conclusions. So unfortunately, most times the explanations that we tell ourselves, because that's what we do, we tell ourselves, we assume it, but those explanations are not always accurate. So, for example, let me create a perspective to sort of rub this in a bit more for more clarity. So imagine that your manager, you've set up a meeting like 2 weeks ago. It's been locked in. This meeting is about your career conversation. You're very keen. You're looking to get promoted. You've practiced, you've prepped yourself, you're ready, and then he or she cancels the meeting. So if we look at that scenario, the fact that the meeting was canceled may be because he or she had to postpone it because something impromptu came up, or they were not feeling well, or maybe they had a personal situation that they had to deal with, and they may not want that personal situation to creep into the conversation, right? They want to have a clear head. They want to have that conversation with you in the way that is really, it could be anything, right? But you don't know that. So you see that the meeting is canceled. And then what happens? There is that fear. And then you create some assumptions and you say, oh, here we go again. So meaning like I've prepared for this meeting and he just cancels or she just cancels this meeting, then it means my development is no longer important. Or perhaps you've applied for several positions and, position after position, you just keep being turned down. You haven't received the offer yet. And the fact of the matter might be because the right role has not yet popped up. And that's why it's not materializing, right? The people you're applying for don't see you fitting into the role. You may have done everything. Your resume is well packaged. You have the experience to show for it. You're able to communicate your value. You might have all those boxes checked, and yet the opportunity does not arise. So, of course, as human nature, you will be disappointed, right? But guess what? We start thinking, oh, I'm not relevant. My experience is no longer something that they need, or maybe the competition is better. And, it just turns into that negative narrative that we feed ourselves. And it could be that your organization is doing a restructuring, communication has been limited. And the fact of the matter is, maybe the final structure has not been communicated for whatever reason. But in your head, and because you're anxious, you obviously know that the role is at risk, right? So there's limited information. And I'm not suggesting that the reality may be that you may be impacted, right? Negatively. We're not pretending that everything will work out exactly as you hope for. So that's not what we're saying here. Grounded leadership, which I'm trying to explain to you on how you can ground yourself in the situation, is not equal to denial. We're not saying that it could not turn out right. It may not turn out the way you anticipate. What I'm saying here is you having the discipline of responding to what is true rather than reacting to everything that your mind, because of fear, is imagining for you. And when uncertainty begins to overwhelm you, my greatest advice for you is to pause and ask, what do I actually know? Ask yourself this question. What am I assuming? Because you are the one saying it and telling yourself. Is it a fact, or is it you assuming it? What am I afraid may happen? Ask yourself these questions. What evidence supports this fear that I'm having? And what information do I still need? And these questions are important because they create space between the situation and your own reaction, right? And sometimes that space is where better decisions begin. Because now that you ask yourself these candid questions, you can begin to, for a fact, respond to that and then make better decisions as a result of you asking those questions. And not assuming that every thought, every assumption that you make is correct. So when we talk about grounded, does it mean that we remain unaffected by the situation? I would say no. And I would really want to clarify something very important here. Being grounded does not mean that you never feel worried. It doesn't mean that you're always calm. It doesn't mean that you avoid disappointment, frustration, sadness, or fear, because you're human. We're all human. And uncertainty affects us, each and every one of us. The goal here really is not to become emotionally untouched by change. The goal here is to ensure that during times of uncertainty, that your information, your emotion, right, informs you without completely, I would say, directing you. So you're feeling this way, validate how you're feeling. You can acknowledge, for example, that, oh my goodness, this situation is difficult, right? I am disappointed by this news. Or you can say, I am concerned about what's coming next because I don't know. And I do not like not knowing. And you can still ask, what response in this moment will serve me best, right? These are your emotions, but you can, I would say, compartmentalize it into two buckets. These are my emotions, and this is what I can influence or what I can control. So, in a sense, what I'm trying to say here is in times of uncertainty, you need to develop a sense of being grounded in the moment. And grounded leadership means that you don't abandon yourself because the environment has become unpredictable. And most times, this is what we do. The advice really is remain connected to who you are, to your values, to your experience, to your judgment, to your support system. Like never before, you need them now. Remain grounded to the evidence of what you have already overcome, your experiences, your resilience through times of difficulty. And you may feel unsettled, but that doesn't mean that you become directionless. You may have questions without losing confidence in your capacity to find answers. And you, rightfully so, may need time without becoming, I would say permanently stuck in that situation, because you need to, I would use the word grieve the moment, accept that things are changing, accept that things may not necessarily always be the way they were, accept that you're divorcing yourself from what used to be. And this is what it means to lead yourself through uncertainty, right? Accept that this is happening to you, but at the same time, create direction because you need to move forward. So I'm going to share anchors for us as women that we can explore, or I would say apply, that can help us through uncertain seasons. And I'm going to start with naming that season accurately, like what is happening to me. And before you can respond well to any situation, you must first of all understand what you're experiencing, what you're going through. So you need to look at that situation and name it. Is this a season of waiting for you? Is it a season of transitioning, maybe between one job to another? Is it a season where you're rebuilding yourself? Is it a season where you're learning? Or is it a season of loss? Is it a season where you're exploring things? Or a season that it's necessary? This change is necessary. And sometimes we describe every uncomfortable season as a failure. But the words that we use matter, right? A transition is not automatically a failure. If there is a job change or there's a restructuring and you've been moved from a higher level down a lower level, it doesn't necessarily mean that you are a failure, right? Because a delay is not automatically a rejection. There is a reason for why that leveling was dropped down because of a restructuring, which has been explained to you. And I know it doesn't feel comfortable. Even as I say it, it's just so difficult to even wrap your head around it, right? But it has happened. And having that sort of closed door per se is not always the end of your progress. It's just a detour, I would say, or a pause in your journey, and it doesn't define you. So a period of questioning does not mean that you've lost your way. It's just a moment in time for yourself where you start asking yourself some very important questions. Like, what is this season genuinely asking of me right now? Perhaps it could be asking you to be patient, based on what you've been told. It could be asking you to maybe become more visible so that people can understand the value you bring to the organization. It could be asking you to build a new capability, maybe upskill yourself. It could be asking you to release a direction that no longer fits. Let it go. It's not working. And maybe the future, there is no possible way forward if you continue to tour this path, right? It's not promising anymore. And maybe that's the truth that you need to tell yourself. And perhaps it's asking you to stop forcing an answer and listen more, listen carefully, listen to the feedback you're getting from people, from colleagues, from mentors. Listen to what's being said as opposed to what you want people to hear. from you. So naming the season accurately for yourself so that you can respond to what is happening to you, not only to know how it feels is important. And generally, when you're going through times of uncertainty, it doesn't feel good. It doesn't feel nice. So we shouldn't allow that feeling of negativity to overwhelm us. We should be able to name what's happening and then from there start asking very pointed questions. This is happening now. How can I interpret it? What does this mean for me? And what can I do next? Another anchor I would love for us to practice doing, and this is point 2, is to shorten the time horizon, right? So one of the reasons that I think uncertainty feels overwhelming is that we try to solve too much all at once, right? We ask ourselves, what would my career look like in the next year? And sometimes that can be overwhelming because next year I don't know. The question could be, will this organization still be right for me? Can you answer that question right now? Sometimes, maybe not. And it's too overwhelming. It's too big for you to start even trying to figure it out. The question could be, when will I finally reach the next level? I haven't tried so hard all the time. It could be, what if I'm making the wrong decision? It could be, what if everything changes? And you don't have control over that. So these questions may be understandable for your situation. It may make sense, but they're often too large for you to be able to answer maybe now or today or whenever. And the long-term picture, because it's unclear, it's best you shorten that time horizon. So instead of asking, for example, how will I solve everything? You could ask, what requires my attention this week? Right. So shorten it, because when you shorten it, then you can like zoom in and focus on what you can control this week. The question you could start asking yourself could be, what conversation should I have? And maybe pinpointing with who. So you understand having the conversation with the right person matters, right? What information do I need? The question could be, what small decision can I make now? Or what action would help me regain my momentum? And perhaps your next step is maybe to update your resume. Perhaps your next step could be requesting clarity from your manager. Maybe it's reconnecting with someone in your professional network. Um, Perhaps maybe it's reassessing your finances before you make a career decision, right? Maybe it's to rest long enough for you to think properly before you react. You do not need to solve the entire future today. Now, you can stop and wait, and you can ask that people give you time so you can think about it and respond. So the point here is, you need to lead the part of the journey that is currently in front of you. Until next time, stay empowered, remain grounded, and remember to empower her.